Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I often get asked about some of the kit in here and why I think it's necessary or what it gets used for or how it's controlled. And, I have done videos on all the kit in the past, but a couple of questions have come up. What is that black thing? So I thought I'd explain what the black thing is and the theory behind it. It's effectively an ionizing air cleaner. Now, it's only a small unit, and I did some work and found out that it would be suitable for this size environment. But these sort of things work best in a relatively closed environment. It'd be useless outside, it's totally useless, or in a massive environment you'd have to get a much bigger unit. But its operation, the way it works, I'll explain why I think I might need this in a minute, but how it works is these plates on here, a current is passed across those. I don't know what metal it is, so don't ask, but it's the right metal for the job it's trying to do. But when the current's passed across those plates, it creates ions into the air around the unit that lives in there. Yeah. So its basic operation is there's a fan in there that draws air in the back of the unit. Yeah. And it's got a spongy filter in there, which I have to clean every now and again. Those plates need to clean off every now and again, but not often. The maintenance on this is negligible. It takes sort of 5 minutes every couple of months, so don't mess with it. But it's got a filter in there to stop any large particles getting down to where those plates are. Because of the way it works, they would probably stick to it and possibly even do damage. So that filters the air that comes in there. In the top of the unit, which I'm not allowed to see, is a UV light. I think some parts of the world it's called dark light or black light, but basically it's a ultraviolet light which has a killing property to it. Anybody who has the sort of units in fish tanks or ponds with filters and things will know that UV light has a killing property to it. So that lives inside, but because the rays that are given off can be damaging to your eyes, I'm not allowed to see it. It's built in. I know it's there. It's difficult to tell whether it's working, but if you come out here at night, you can see the glow. So I do know it's on. And basically, when you turn it on, the fan draws the air in the back, passes it over that UV light, filters it, and then passes it down to the chamber where those plates are, where the current gets passed across and creates ions, and then they're blown out the front via the little fan. So that's the flow of the air through there. Now the science behind these, or this idea, is relatively new, and it all stemmed from trying to work out why people feel better around waterfalls, fast flowing water, on the coast where the waves are crashing and stuff like that. And, in the old days, in Victorian times, people were sent to the coast for their health. Well, in the main, that was to get them out of the highly polluted air around the industrial areas. It's just really get some clean air, go somewhere clean. Wouldn't it be nice if everywhere was clean? Another subject. Anyway, so people started looking into the why. Why is that so? And obviously we know that the air is full of pathogens and things that float around, whether we like it or not, they're there, yeah? And you can get down into the deep science of this if you want to look it up. I mean, I've done that, I've been there and done it. I'm not going to try and explain it, it can get quite complex. But things that fly around in the air have an electrical charge, and the ions that come out of here are charged in such a way that they grab hold of those pathogens and just fundamentally and simply make them too heavy to fly, and they sink down to the ground. Yeah? So I'm ankle deep in them. No, we're talking about microscopic level here. You can't see this. This is serious electron microscope jobs to see what's going on. But that's the fundamental principle, is that the ions produced by this little unit grab hold of pathogens and just make them sink to the floor. It stops them floating around in the air and getting on my plants. you know, they can cause problems. So that's the principle. Where do these sorts of things get used? This is backup now. Don't just believe what I say. You can go and do your own research. But hospitals use these in their air conditioning units. Wonder why that is then. It's full of ill people, isn't it? Yeah? Clean air would be good for them. Very good. You know, if you're in a... It's like our plants. The ones in the weakest state get hit by the bugs and the problems. You know, the ones that are fit and strong don't need to worry so much. But that's the principle, is the fact that it helps keep my air clean and remove some of the stuff that would be better if it wasn't there. Now, I can't prove it even works. But, you know me, I always go to the practical. Let's pick a practical example. Because of the way things have been going on in here and the increase in the number of plants, therefore it takes longer to water them, and some of the faffing that's been doing the water with the water lately, that's added a bit of time in as well. Yeah, well, that's not going to happen so much. But as a consequence, when I'm watering, this little table gets splashed a lot. This is electrical. Yeah, electrics and water don't mix too well together. So when I'm working in here and watering stuff, that gets turned off and put out the way on the floor. You know, I'm not as young as I used to be. Sometimes I have memory lapses, senior moments. And quite honestly, this year, I often forget to turn the flipping thing back on when I've finished splashing stuff around. So it's not been on anywhere near as much this year as it was last year. Yeah, and through the winter, you know, when I'm watering far less frequently and there's a lot less splashing around going on, basically. So this year it hasn't been on as much. What have I had more of this year that I don't ever remember having before? The odd little bit of rot. Yeah, the odd bit of a plant going into troubles. Now, I can't prove that's because I haven't had that on as much. But putting two and two together, maybe. As I said, I can't prove anything. I can't prove that that little thing does any good at all. But the science behind it says it should. Yeah? So I'm assuming it does some good. If it does no good at all, this runs off an adapter, cuts the power down to 12 volts. The amount of electricity that's using is so small, I doubt if I could even measure it. You know, pence a year, I would think. You know, it uses next to nothing. So it's not costing me anything to run as such, negligible. So whether it does any good or not, it's not costing anything. It wasn't an expensive unit. You can pay an awful lot of money for these things. There's an awful lot of companies now who have got this science built into their air conditioning units. Well, companies are there to make money, and as a second thing they might think about the comfort of their and well-being of their employees, but I'll bet the money comes first nowadays. But anyway, you know, they're incorporating this science into their air conditioning units, so they're paying more for their air conditioning units. Well, they would need to justify that. I assume they have. Hospitals use this technology for obvious reasons. You know, clean air where there's ill people. You don't want to make them worse, do you? You go in hospital to have your finger straightened because you've broken it and come out ill. You don't need all that. You know, so the technology's there. It's being used quietly in the background. Nobody ever mentions it or says anything about it. Well, if you want to find out a bit about it, the information's out there. And this won't work for everybody. You know, if you had a vast growing space, you'd need a hell of a big unit, and you're starting talking serious bucks, you know. If you grow in your home, you have to bear in mind, how big's the room? Because these work on the cubic feet of the airspace that they're in. Yeah, that's why this little unit is suitable for this amount of growing space. But that's what it is. That's what it's for. That's sort of how it works at a very basic level. So people who've said, what's that black thing in the corner? Well, that's what it is, and that's what it's there for, and that's what I hope it's doing. But I can't prove it. But the science is there behind it. That backs up this scientific principle about producing these charged ions that grab hold of stuff in the air that we can do without and make them sink to the floor, and then somebody can come around and sweep them up. That's what it is anyway, just a little bit of kit that sits there quietly in the background and does its thing, I hope. See you again.